Welcome to the life of a Conure parrot, a bird that is essentially a high-energy toddler trapped in the body of a 70-gram feathery avocado. To understand their life cycle, we have to start at the beginning, the breeding season. In the wild, this happens in South America, but in the mind of a Conure, breeding season is any time they see a nice-looking cardboard box or a particularly cozy-looking sock. The journey begins with courtship. If you were expecting a majestic swan-like display of grace, you're in the wrong forest. The male conure woos his lady by performing what can only be described as a caffeinated bobblehead dance. He puffs his feathers out until he looks like a tennis ball with an attitude, wags his tail like a hyperactive puppy, and hops around with the confidence of a guy who thinks he's the main character in a Broadway musical. If the female is impressed, and let's be honest, her standards for impressive mostly involve has a pulse and a beak, they engage in mutual preening. This is the parrot version of a spa date, where they nibble the pin feathers off each other's heads. This is followed by courtship feeding, which is exactly what it sounds like. The male regurgitates his lunch directly into her mouth. It's disgusting to us, but in the bird world, that's a 5-star Michelin dinner date. Once the romance is out of the way, they need a house. Green cheeks aren't into open-concept living. They want a dark, cramped tree hollow where they can brood in peace. In a home setting, this is why your conure suddenly thinks your kitchen cabinets are a sovereign nation and will defend them with the ferocity of a tiny winged Spartan. Inside the nest, the female prepares to lay her clutch. Usually, this is 4 to 6 eggs, but because conures never do anything at a reasonable pace, she lays them one at a time, every other day. It's like a subscription service where the delivery guy only comes 3 times a week and leaves a fragile white marble in your living room. Now we enter the incubation phase, or as the female calls it, the 24 days of absolute boredom. For about 3.5 weeks, she sits on those eggs, keeping them at a cozy 99 degrees. Her main hobbies during this time include turning the eggs, because nobody likes a lopsided embryo, and screaming at the male whenever he's 10 seconds late with her snack delivery. The male, meanwhile, plays the role of the bouncer. He stands outside the nest hole, looking tough. If a predator or a stray leaf dares to get too close, he will unleash a war cry that sounds like a rusty gate being dragged across a chalkboard. He is 2.5 ounces of pure, unadulterated, come at me bro. Inside the egg, a tiny monster is brewing. As the 24th day approaches, the chick develops an egg tooth. This isn't a real tooth, thankfully, because a parrot with teeth is the stuff of nightmares, but a sharp little calcium bump on its beak. The chick starts pipping, which is basically the avian version of using a jackhammer to get out of a locked room. It takes hours. It's exhausting. It's messy, but eventually the shell cracks, and out tumbles a creature so incredibly weird-looking that only a mother conure could love it. It's pink, it's naked, it has giant bulging eyeballs that are still shut, and it looks like a piece of raw chicken that someone dropped in a barbershop. The miracle of life has officially begun, and things are about to get very, very loud. If you thought the miracle of birth was pretty, you clearly haven't looked into a conure nest box on day 3. At this stage, the chicks aren't exactly Instagram ready. They look like something that fell out of a UFO. Pink, translucent, and possessing a neck that seems entirely too thin to support a head that is 80% eyeball. The first week of a conure's life is essentially a competitive eating contest. Because the eggs hatched at different times, you have a step-ladder effect. You've got the oldest sibling, who is already a massive 10 grams of pure ego, and the youngest, who is still trying to figure out which way is up. The parents are now basically high-speed food processors. The mother spends her day producing crop milk, which is essentially a probiotic smoothie from hell, and pumping it into the chicks. The chicks respond by making a sound that can best be described as a frantic, rhythmic noise. If you've ever heard a radio that's not quite tuned to a station, but the radio is also hungry and living in a hollow tree, that's the sound of a baby conure. Around the 10-day mark, something monumental happens. Their eyes open. This is a double-edged sword. On one hand, the chick can finally see its parents. On the other hand, it can finally see its siblings, and it realizes it has to share the food with these other weird-looking aliens. At this point, they also start growing down. Not the fancy, expensive goose down you find in a luxury pillow, but a thin, wispy layer of white fuzz that makes them look like they've been rolled in dryer lint. They are still mostly naked, very clumsy, and spend 22 hours a day in a food coma, slumped over each other in a pile of lukewarm wings and feet. By week 3, we hit the peak of the awkward phase. This is the pin feather stage. Instead of soft, fluffy feathers, the chick's body begins to sprout dark, sharp-looking tubes called keratin sheaths. These are essentially feather straws. During this week, the baby conure looks less like a bird and more like a very angry porcupine or a prehistoric cactus. If you touch them, they feel prickly. They are also incredibly itchy. They spend their time scratching themselves and each other, trying to break open those plastic-like straws to let the feathers out. This is also when they start finding their big bird voice. The static noise begging has been replaced by a raspy, insistent squawk that says, "I haven't eaten in 4 minutes and I am literally going to expire." As we approach the end of the first month, the straws start to burst. It's like a slow-motion explosion of color. Suddenly, the tips of the wings show a flash of emerald green. The tail starts to turn that signature dull maroon. The dark cap on their head begins to form, giving them the appearance of wearing a very small, very serious beret. Physically, they are now about 75% the size of their parents, but they have zero coordination. They try to stand up, wobble for 3 seconds, and then face plant into the nest floor. They are also starting to discover their beaks. Everything, and I mean everything, must be tasted. Their siblings' toe tastes like chicken. A piece of wood tastes like crunch. Their mother's face tastes like more food. The nest is getting crowded. The parents are looking exhausted, and the chicks are starting to realize that there is a world outside that hole in the tree. The stay-at-home phase is ending, and the falling out of trees phase is about to begin. Our little porcupines are now almost fully feathered, but still possess the grace of a brick attempting ballet. This is the fledge and wean stage, a period of monumental growth and comical clumsiness. If you've ever watched a nature documentary where a baby bird falls out of the nest, this is that stage, but with more frantic flapping and less dignity. Around week 6 or 7, the conure chicks are getting restless. The nest box, which once seemed like a spacious studio apartment, now feels like a broom closet overflowing with moody teenagers. They start winger sizing, gripping the edge of the nest hole and flapping their wings with an intensity that would make a professional bodybuilder proud. This isn't just for show, it's building the pectoral muscles needed to defy gravity, or at least argue with it for a bit. The actual fledge is less of a majestic soar and more of an uncontrolled plummet with enthusiastic wing movements. Imagine someone jumping off a diving board for the first time, flailing, panicking, and hoping for a soft landing. Young conures often choose the nearest, sturdiest-looking branch for their inaugural flight, which they then hit with the precision of a drunk darts player. Landing is a skill they will spend weeks perfecting, often involving a comical skid, a frantic grasp, or a full-on belly flop. Every tree is a potential crash site, and every bush a soft landing pad for the perpetually surprised fledgling. Simultaneously, the parents are orchestrating the great weaning. This isn't a gentle transition, it's tough love with a side of, "Figure it out, kid." The parents start offering less direct feeding and instead lead their fledglings to foraging sites. It's like a scavenger hunt where the prize is not starving. The young conures are initially baffled. "You mean I have to get my own food? With my beak? That's what you're for," they squawk. But necessity, as they say, is the mother of invention and self-feeding. They watch their parents intently, mimicking their every move. How do you crack that seed? Like this. How do you strip that bark? With a satisfying rip. How do you make that berry explode in your face? Oh, they learn that one very quickly. Weaning is abundance-based. The parents don't just cut them off cold turkey. They offer bits and pieces, but the fledglings are encouraged to try things for themselves. It's a messy process, involving a lot of dropped food, confused head tilts, and the realization that gravity applies to millet sprays too. By week 8 to 10, most are self-sufficient, though they might still demand a pity feeding from mom or dad just to prove they still love them. As they become more mobile, the fledglings are integrated into the wider flock. This is where they learn the nuances of parrot society. They discover that a loud scree means danger, and a softer chatter means, "Hey, found some really good seeds over here." This is also the period where the conure earns its reputation for being a bit nippy. They go through a bluffing phase, using their beaks to test boundaries. Imagine a tiny feathered teenager trying to exert independence by shouting, "I'm not going to bed," while gnawing on your earlobe. They don't mean to hurt you, usually. They're just figuring out their own strength and where they fit into the social pecking order. During these weeks, every moment is a lesson, and the best way to learn? Play. You'll see them hanging upside down, wrestling with their siblings like tiny feathered sumo wrestlers, or attacking innocent leaves with the ferocity of a miniature raptor. Every clumsy flight, every dropped seed, every playful bite is honing the skills they will need to survive for the next 2 decades. By the end of this stage, the bird is no longer a clumsy fledgling. It's a confident, albeit still a bit goofy, juvenile. It knows how to fly, mostly. It knows how to eat, usually, and it knows how to make a respectable amount of noise. The nest is truly empty, and the parents can finally get some much-needed peace and quiet until the next breeding season. Around the 1-year mark, they undergo their first major adult molt. This is a miserable time for everyone involved. The bird is covered in pin feathers, which are essentially sharp, itchy keratin tubes that make them look like a cross between a parrot and a medieval torture device. Because these pins are filled with blood and sensitive nerves, the conure becomes incredibly grumpy. If you touch a pin feather the wrong way, the bird will react as if you've personally insulted its ancestors. They spend hours preening, turning their surroundings into a snowstorm of white dander and discarded feather sheaths. But when the dust settles, they emerge in their adult suit, vibrant, shiny, and ready to break some hearts. Between ages 1 and 2, the hormones hit like a freight train. In the wild, this is when a conure realizes it's time to stop hanging out with its parents and find a special someone. In a house, this is when your bird decides that your favorite coffee mug is now its mortal enemy and must be pushed off the counter with extreme prejudice. This is the bluffing stage on steroids. They will lung, they will nip, and they will scream at a frequency that can shatter safety glass. They aren't being mean. They're just trying to figure out if they're the boss of the universe. Spoiler alert, they usually think they are. They start nesting, which is a fancy way of saying they turn every piece of paper, cardboard, or expensive tax document into confetti in approximately 4 seconds. If you survive the teenage years, you reach the settled adult phase around age 3. The conure has found its place in the flock, or its favorite human's shoulder, and has mastered the art of the pair bond. Conures are not loner birds, they are social addicts. An adult conure's day is basically a never-ending cycle of the morning scream to announce that the sun is up and it is time for breakfast. The social preen, spending hours meticulously cleaning their partner's head feathers or your eyebrows. The midday nap, a period of intense quiet where they tuck one foot up and look like a fluffy lime. The foraging mission, searching for the perfect snack, which usually ends up being whatever you are currently eating. An adult conure is terrifyingly smart. They can learn to solve puzzles, use tools, and even manipulate their humans with precision. They know exactly which cute tilt of the head will result in a piece of apple, and exactly which low-frequency growl will get them out of their cage. They have reached their peak physical and mental form, a 2.5-ounce ball of emerald feathers, high-level intelligence, and enough personality to fill a stadium. They are now ready to start the cycle all over again, looking for a hollow tree or a cozy shelf to start a family of their own. They've gone from a naked alien to a prickly pear, to a clumsy pilot, and finally to the sophisticated, slightly judgmental feathered adult they were always meant to be. Thank you for watching Animal Ascension, and thank you for taking the time out of your day to learn about the conure parrot. Please like and subscribe and stay tuned for more videos.